a bunch of different social media sites that I have, and hopefully this is doing what I expect it to. Otherwise, I'm going to be entertaining myself for the next half hour, 45 minutes. Hey, thanks for tuning in, everybody. I have an audience, I think, or I hope. If not, I'll have to build it. But working on some cartoons here. Working on some cartoons. I have not figured out how to use OBS so that I can see which way I'm streaming. Like I want to enable like a chat app, and I want to be able to have my screen, you know, function so that I can interact with everybody as I'm doing my thing. That's why I put the camera and had it so you guys can see me while I'm working on this. There are other things that I hear that OBS can do, like it can do this chroma key thing, which is like a green screen, where it'll drop everything out behind me and then I'm the only person sitting there, I'm the only thing sitting there, which I think would be pretty cool for me, you know? I can just have you guys focus on what I'm drawing and then my ugly face, so that, you know, everybody's vomiting as little as possible. So I'm considerate like that. So what I'm working on here is I'm working on more of the second place stuff, and for those of you that know how these things go, you're probably saying to yourself, you're not done with that yet? There's a lot going on. I'm working on a couple of other stories and books, and I am trying to get them all together at the same time, and I have to put second place on the back burner for certain times of the day, and I have to figure out how my workload's going to go across the day. So what I had to do was, okay, that is part of the weights. What I had to do was I had to figure out what I was going to do, and then what I'm going to put on here, or what I'm streaming. I had to figure it out. So I handled a lot of the coloring stuff I had to do earlier today. I handled some of my contractual stuff that I can't really talk about, but it's like right here, which is why the camera is not going to get swung down there, because then you guys can look at it and be like, oh, that's what he's working on. But you guys are going to love it. But for now, I'm showing you second place because this is something that is both mine and Ben Goldsmith's, and it is something that I want you guys to know about. Oh, Inky Jagger, I'm on the wrong one. See, I am looking at my inks palette and wondering why the sketches I just threw up there look a little weird. It's because I'm not using the brush that I'm normally used to. So I'm used to that one. That one's called Lando Calibrusian, if anybody's interested. Because I know I'm like a process junkie. I gotta know what everybody's doing, you know? What are you using? How are you doing that? Why is it magic and I'm not part of that? It's called bug folks and ask them. Well, not really bug. Bug's kind of a derogatory word. I will ask people what materials they're using and what software they're using, because I want to try and recreate the process. I don't want to do the same things they're doing. I just sometimes notice things that are working for them that I think to myself, oh man, that would work really well for me. So I figured if any of you out there are like me, then you won't have to ask. I'll just tell you. So one thing I did notice while I was laying in the page and taking a look at things that I was setting up for this is that, geez, that doesn't look good. Fairy doesn't have his arms. What the heck was I thinking? Fairy's got like 2 sets of arms. You know? And he's going to have those. There's that. He's got some little abs right here. The eraser's too big. Is that background? That's backgrounds. That's not. Like I said, plates in there. So much, so much. A little wisp hanging right there. Ugh. Just kind of drives me nuts, I guess. I want everything to look clean and vector-like. I guess my subconscious is doing a number on me because when I first set these pages up, I was thinking to myself, oh man, I didn't set these ink layers as vector. I set them as raster. And I know for some of you it doesn't make a difference, but if you can see the screen, see this is the difference between raster and vector. So you see how it's getting a little pixelated? Watch this. We'll add a new vector layer and it'll go like this. What? Oh, that was erase. Use brush. Okay. Sure, looks pixelated, I guess. However, it's kind of not. Because all of those little points are vectorized. The entire line is one big vector shape. And I can adjust it and make it do anything I want, and I can zoom in and zoom out, and it's not going to lose any sort of resolution. You know, this is something I've said before, vector versus raster. Most times raster always wins, because raster you can copy, paste, blow it up, bring it down, it doesn't matter because the boundaries of the image are based on mathematical formulas. So it uses that math to make sure that the resolution stays in place. But raster is just based on how many dots per inch, or DPI, you've set the file at. And what I set this file at is 600 DPI. And it's only going to allow you to get into that area. You know, like right now, according to this low left corner, I am 644.2 times enlarged. Well, not enlarged. I'm zoomed in that much. That sounded weird. It was almost like this turned into a Pornhub channel instead of what I'm streaming, and that's just something entirely different. It's how I paid for my college. No, it's not. Now, if we go and we zoom out to 100, you'll see that those lines look pretty clean. See, at 100%, the lines look incredibly clean. They look crisp and sharp. Now, if you go into, say, 6 times that, which would make it 600 dots per inch, you would see it start to pixelate. Magic falls apart. It's like you know how they saw the lady in half. It's not magical anymore. Or maybe it is. Maybe you look at it and you're like, wow, that's really interesting. I don't know your life. So what I'm doing here is I'm going back and I'm correcting some issues that I realized when I opened up the file. I opened up the file and I noticed that the second set of arms that Ferry usually has in the middle of his torso, I didn't draw those. So I have to kind of put them in there. Because I made him since he's a weightlifter, I made him have like 4 arms because I assumed when I read the script that this character would just, he'd always be doing something with his hands. You know? He'd always be, you know what, I don't like that up there. I'll figure something out. You know what, maybe Alex can handle it in colors. But I figured that the character would always have something going on with his hands. And I figured that if that were the case, then how am I going to emote? How am I going to show what this guy's doing? Because, you know, this story is kind of has a lot of psychology and emotion at play. So how am I going to show that? And I figured, second set of arms, man. You know, it's the same philosophy as that joke behind a mullet. Business in front, party in the back. So when everything is serious up here, the hands will be emoting. Now, when you buy this book, and you will buy this book, when you buy the book, you take a look at things that the hands are doing. Pay attention to them. Because I made jokes. There are things that the hands are doing that just, they're not right. But you have to pay attention. There's stuff in the background that's funny. There's stuff that the hands are doing. There's facial expressions. I put some thought into it. And of course, it's like a clean art style, so when you look at it, you're just going to zoom right through it. You know, you would with a normal comic book anyway, but bring that down. What I wanted was, I wanted folks to, is that the pastel? Yeah, it is. I wanted folks to read through it, and then go back to it and take a look at it and be like, wow, I didn't notice that before. Just I wanted them to buy a book that they could appreciate. It's one of like a time bomb sort of thing, you know? If you read it, and then you think to yourself, what the heck did he mean? And then you go back to it. And you're like, oh, I wasn't paying attention to that before. Like, I put myself in the book a bunch of times. I put friends in the book. I put my wife in the book. I put Ben in the book. We did some crazy stuff. We put some of our friends in the book. Okay, so what I would like to do is I'm going to go to Ferric level. I need to erase this. So I don't like the way that hair looks. It's got to be a certain way. You know, it just can't look like a pompadour. It's got to look like, it's got to look clean. You know, it's got to look like it's close to the head, full of, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like, the way I want Ferrig's hair to look is I want it to look like it's got a purpose. I want it to look like, and it sounds weird, like of course hair has purpose, but I want it to look like Fairy is consistently moving forward and consistently kind of in a rush. You know, like he's always expecting things to be his way and go his way, so he's always moving towards those things. And it sounds kind of hokey, and yeah, I definitely did overthink it, but you know, I'm the guy that drew it. So. So, I want it to look like swoosh. It's a razor style, a razor cut hairstyle. So now, no, that's not right. I gotta take a look at this, picture it in my head. So let me erase this up here because I noticed that little bit. So it goes like this. So guys, if anybody knows how to use OBS, and if anybody can assist me in making some of that stuff happen that I spoke about earlier, like making sure that I can see the chat widget, you know, adding in the chroma key, figuring out how I can best utilize the software so I can stream what I'm doing here and talk to you guys and interact. Like I've said before, I'm trying to build a small community. I'm trying to interact on a more personal level with my fan base. I mean, it seems egotistical, you know, oh, you've got a fan base, you're trying to interact. No. I'm trying to build a fan base. I had somebody say to me the other day, oh man, you're becoming a master. And it's like, I appreciate the compliment. I really do. But I've never wanted to be a master. And I didn't take their compliment as an insult. I never wanted to be a master. I just wanted to be an inspiration to kids that thought that they couldn't do what they dreamt of doing. I was a little kid. I grew up, and here we go, old man with your soapbox. When I was a kid, I grew up. I didn't really have much. And I was watching this thing today on Hulu, and it's like a documentary about hip hop. There's 2 parts, and I only watched part 1. But Ice-T was talking, and for those of you that don't know Ice-T, like, there are some rappers that don't walk the walk and just talk the talk. Ice-T's no joke. My man was into some heavy gang stuff in the 80s and the 90s, and he will let you know. But he said some stuff about opportunity and about poverty, and it was spot on. I mean, it was spot on in my opinion, but you know, maybe you might not understand, or maybe you might not agree. What do you say? You just sit there. What he said was something along the lines of, when you're poor, you don't see opportunity. So you take risks. See? Someone who sees opportunities and understands that life has opportunities for them, they won't go and rob a liquor store. But someone who's broke and poor and they don't feel like they got a shot, they'll get a gun. They'll rob a liquor store. He's right. Being poor, you'll see a lot of people do some stuff that you're just like, I don't get it. It's because they don't really have hope. It's not that they don't have education. They just don't have hope. So, what I'd like to do is I'd like to have a small community. You know, even if it's online right now, thanks to COVID. Even if it's online, I'd like to have a small community where people can have hope and they can look at stuff and they can say, you know, hey, how do you do that? Show me, teach me. That's what I want to do. See, one of the things I've always wanted to do was to draw cartoons, get paid for it. And I've always wanted to start my own multimedia studio on the edge of a not so nice part of town. And there's reasons for that. Because on the edge of not so nice parts of town, you've got people that don't have hope. And I've always known that even though there are people with no hope, there's always people with intellect and talent. My goal in creating this multimedia studio was to find kids that have talent and can make something of themselves, to bring them in and to tell them, hey, I'll show you how I do this if you empty my trash. You gotta earn your way around here. And they empty the trash, and they learn. It's very Mr. Miyagi, because as they're learning, they're building a portfolio. And then when they're ready to graduate from high school, they can enroll themselves in our tuition reimbursement program. And once they've graduated from high school or from college, they work for us for a couple of years. And what they do is they build their professional portfolio. And once they've built their professional portfolio, they can choose to stay on. And if they don't choose to stay on, they can move away from the old neighborhood and they can make something of themselves. And they can do it by themselves. They can have hope. Let's see, we got Ferg. There's always naysayers. There's always people that are like the exact opposite of your opinion. So I would expect that anybody who sees this video, there's bound to be a couple of people saying, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what it's like being poor. Yeah, I do. You don't know what it's like being faced with having to commit a crime in order to make sure that things get taken care of in your family. Yeah, I do. You don't know what you're talking about. You would be wrong. That would be a bet that you would lose. So I think I've told you guys before when I worked on streaming in my other channel, my art channel, or my YouTube channel, whatever. I think I've told you guys before that I have a cousin. He's Command Sergeant Major, Combat Engineers, and I used to be on tanks, armored cavalry. I guess that's what armor falls under. Which, yeah, it does. It does fall under armor cavalry. So, well, military's kind of been in our family for years. I got out after 3 years. He stayed in. He made a career of it. But when he was getting ready to get out, he was stationed at the post where I did my duty. So he was stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado. And I had the opportunity to go to a comic book convention in Fort Carson, Colorado. And he put me up, and it was great. I got to stay with my cousin and meet his wife and reconnect. And we were having a couple beers in his garage one night. And we were just talking about stuff. We were talking about, you know, what's going on back home and who's doing what. And, you know. He said something to me that kind of stuck with me. And what he said to me was, you know, man, out of all the stuff we did as kids, out of all the times we got into trouble, out of all the people that lived in that neighborhood, who'd have thought that you and I would have grown up and been the only two that actually did something positive with their lives and made their way out. And it really, like, I hadn't thought about it until he said that. And he was right. So him and I, we were always in trouble. But I used to draw. He used to go do his thing. He's a very responsible adult, a very good father. So I wouldn't blow up his spot. He is in Germany currently. Him and his wife and his beautiful daughter. Dual citizenship. Jealous. I'm so jealous. But he's told me anytime I want to come and visit him and his family, me and my wife are more than welcome to. And I have a passport. I can go. I don't think my wife has, but we can get her one. And go up to him with this towel. This fairy is wiping his head down. He just got done lifting weights. So we gotta erase some stuff, clean it up. So anyway, I know it seems like crazy old man talk. You know? Yeah. What are you just going on about? That's what I'm going on about. Oof, that was a bad tangent. I don't know if you guys saw that, but there was that curve that was from his bicep that I ran into his muscle shirt that he was wearing. And it was not good. Look at that. You see that circle there? That's his shoulder. Yeah, do this one. Come down. Go over. Ooh. Those are traffic lights, right? There's no bicycles, but we'll do this. Okay, so I guess I just figured out how to use the chat. Oh, okay, so this thing's working then. Yes. Okay. So I guess I got that chat thing working. I'm going to minimize it. I'm going to figure this out. I promise you. Why am I pointing to my phone? The camera's right there. The camera is supposed to be the audience, not the phone. Okay, so we'll do this. And we'll go to backgrounds. I just couldn't stand it. And like a kid at Christmas, I couldn't wait. I had to make sure that, you know, what I was doing was working. So I set up my phone to be my proof so that I could see it and be like, is this working? It's working. Okay. Old habits die hard. Yes, they do, my wife. Yes, they do. Okay. So, I'm going to ferric level. I'm going to draw a little sweat thing. Nope, that's not good. Then go down here to the sketch layer. Swap this over. That'll look good, right? Yeah, that'll look good. Oop. I waved at Tony. Yay. I think I'm getting the hang of this. I mean, I might be. Okay. Sorry, I was balking there. I was trying to decide how those eyebrows were going to look. So, eyebrows show emotion. Look at that. Okay. Do this motiony thing. So it kind of looks like he's wiping his brow. And then once again, Ed has forgotten that Ferrig, the character that he created and designed, has, I don't know what that was. I'm not even going to answer. Ferrig has that. Where's my halftones? Halftones. Let's see, Ferrig. So here, this is on. Just like that, right? So that's, there we go. Wow. Okay, so I guess what I've been doing for the past 39 minutes is getting distracted, cleaning things up, and learning how to use OBS. I guess it worked okay. It wasn't working too bad. Hey, that's a very important person right there. Let's do this. It's this character here. Except he needs to be looking up. So one of the good things about this program is that I can adjust stuff. Control T. Now because Tommy, it's not easy. It comes from hours and hours of practice. It's I don't know if you know about the 10,000 hours philosophy, but it's a lot of that, man. This only looks easy because I've been doing this a bunch. They say you know what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to learn how to use software to stream across like 4 or 5 different social media platforms while I'm doing it, while I'm drawing cartoons here. So I know I make it look easy, but on the inside, I'm like, man, I know I'm screwing something up. Okay. So. He's got that ponytail, but I want to bring it down on this side. So the ponytail's part of his personality. Ugh, that is such a mess. If you have motion sickness right now, I have to apologize. Because I know everybody's watching this stuff and they're like, slow down. And I just realized, looking at the clock, that I spent a lot of time figuring out how to make this thing work. I'm going to figure that out, guys. I'm going to figure out that chat widget. I'm going to make it work. Okay, so you guys want to see how lazy I am? Watch this. I'm going to show you how lazy I am. It's not on backgrounds. Is it on black lines? It's on black lines. Okay. So what I'm trying to do right now is figure out where Dwayne is. And when I say figure out where Dwayne is, I know in the panel he's right there. However, I want to make sure I know what layer he's on. So I can do this. Can't look at lines, where's that ferry? Ferry, bring that down. I'll go to black lines, and I'll bring that down. Well, that's black lines copy. So black lines, bring that down. Weights. Bring that down. Bring that down. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I am turning this into a sketch layer. I'm going to use this for reference so I don't have to draw it. Again, it's under edit. So change that, bring it down to here, shut off the sketch layer so it's less of a mess. And we'll go to Ferrig, which is at a 40, and actually we'll just get another layer. I mean, why not, right? There's a bunch of stuff going on there. Take this. See, once this stuff once you've figured out how to do this, how to move, it's easy peasy. That brush is a little too big. Oh, come on. Really like how brushy, right? Yeah. Okay. So this is a really great brush to use, and you have to purchase it. It's not one of those brushes that you can just go and find online and pirate it. I mean, I'm sure you could pirate it, but it's in a bunch of it's in a set that's like 15 to 20 bucks. And it's all digital brushes for people that like to do this stuff. And I bought it. And it was worth it. The reason why I'm saying you shouldn't pirate it is because it was actually made. A guy who illustrates digitally went and took the time to make all these brushes and then sell them. So he did a great job. There's a lot of great brushes in there. Some of them are watercolor brushes, some of them are like texture brushes that you can use for just switched over to pastel. Some of them are like texture brushes you can use that make things look like acrylic paint or watercolor, but they're very much worth it. I'm a big fan of the whole Robin Hood thing, but when you don't have to and it hurts somebody's bottom line, you just wouldn't want to. Okay, so he is trying to figure out. There we go. Right? It looks like he's a little bit frustrated. Let me turn off this black. Let's go. Okay. What I like is that I can erase things. And one of the problems that you have when you work with paper or other things is that, you can wind up really messing up the paper if you just keep erasing or you have a problem. Well, I'm going to use, I use colored pencil. Sometimes I use, it's a Prismacolor brand called Color Race. And I use those because they're used a lot in animation, and I just go crazy. I've had professional friends say that I sculpt my lines, which I agree with that. I do sculpt my lines. And it tends to make my paper look really messy. And as such, it's not the neatest. And yeah, there we go. Okay. Span that. Polylines. It's a little embarrassing. And it's to the point where it's like, I would rather pencil my own work than have someone, or I'm sorry, I would rather ink my own work than have someone else ink it, which is really crazy because there's another artist out there who's really great, and I admire his work. My wall's like full of his stuff. And we're doing an art trade, and he's like, yeah, you pencil this and I'll ink it, and then it'll be a collaboration. And I'm like, okay. There we go. Look at that. So he's like, what the heck? He's okay. I get it. So this character here, he's the brother-in-law. His name's Dwayne. And he's essentially the accountant at the gym. And I like him because he's pretty cool. He's the type of guy that if he were human, he'd have like a cassette collection, and he'd have all Def Leppard. He'd have all of like Motley Crue's cassettes in his car. He'd have a big poster of Samantha Fox in his room. But I like the guy because I based his look on Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys, but I gave him this ponytail. He's got like thinning hair and this big ponytail. And I don't know why I did that. I just did. So see. So throwing him in there, copy and pasting, saved me a bunch of time. We'll go to halftones. And honestly, this is a result of me building backgrounds and then going and putting the characters over the backgrounds. So it kind of makes a little extra work for me. I was asking my buddy Scott Hamilton the last time I was doing this because he was watching, and I'm like, what should I do? Is there a better way to do it? And he's like, nah, just use the erase tool. Do what you're happy with. Which one? Oh man, I'm the wrong letter. I need to go back up to layer 1. Layer 1. But he's right. Just do it. Do what makes you happy. Do what's working for you. Don't mess with the process. Okay, so where are we at here? It looks like I made a little mess up here. Right? I'm going to go to Blackman's copy. Go to this. Oh, wait. Why do I gotta do that? Why don't I just do this? I don't have to draw the ponytail for self-satisfaction. I gotta draw a ponytail and appease my own ego. What the heck is wrong with me? Because in the last panel, he's supposing, he's like, what the heck, you know? He starts wondering what's going on. And then he shuts his mouth and he's like, oh. So what am I going to do? That's what I'm going to do. Go here. Shut his mouth. Make that fulcrum right there. Let's, just like that. Some of you are like, what are you doing? You're going crazy. I'm not going crazy. Look at that. See? Oh, that's a mess right there. Okay, so that comes down there. I shorten this curve. That goes like this. This goes down here. This goes over here. Just like that. Yay! Super duper. Look at what I did. Ooh, I'm going to Blackline's copy, switch them, go here. Just like that, go here. Switch the color. Ooh, that was a little crazy. Oh no. So I will need to erase them. It's a good thing I realized before I started getting into this that I was going to overlap it. Because if I didn't do that, what would have happened would have been that I would have had to go back and really meticulously clean up those lines. Oof. There, do this. So in my head, I'm picturing him act out these lines. I'm not going to say them out loud because it's going to ruin the joke and you won't buy the book. Look at that. That's that whole Disney cartoonist toolbox thing. We have to make the hand do some interesting stuff, even if it's doing something boring. Because if it's boring, it's flat. You don't want that. Nobody wants it to be boring and flat. Oh. Okay, so go back. Do that. This one here. There we go. I get it. It looks kind of like a mess. However, drop that. Bring this up. Bring that up. Just have a bunch of extra layers. We're on layer 1. So long. I have to do that. Oh man. Yeah. The depth on that's wrong. So the way this looks would be that you're seeing it from the left leading in, and that's not the way it is. You're seeing it from that side. Let's go here, clean this one, that's side, black lines copy, that's side. Yeah, one of the problems with working with so many layers is when you go to clean stuff up, you leave little specks and you just can't really see it. Okay, so let's go to this. And then we'll go to layer 1. And do this. So we're going to put a dot there. These aliens have shoulder markings that are, I guess, important to their race, to their planets. Ooh. Oh. Okay. And it looks like my phone just died on me. You know what? It's time for me to be getting off the computer anyway. Alright, well guys, I hope this was an okay success. Still learning the ins and outs of the OBS software. I hope that this allows me to reach more people and for people to become more familiar with my work, as well as to feel a little more comfortable to approach me on social media and ask me questions about my work, about how to do things, about pricing, commissions, things like that. So feel free. Send me a message on whatever social media you're watching this on. Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. Please. The internet's a wonderful place, and it's got a long, wide reach. Just feel free. So you guys have a good night, and we'll see you again.